My name is George Boston Rhymes once again. This area here is over in Brooks County, over in the Grooversville area. Back in here is an old house, wherein I was brought up. This old house raised 6 children. We lived here from approximately when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I left from this area right here and I was 18 years old to go to Atlanta. It's all grown up now, but these was our 48 acres of land. My granddad and grandmother purchased years ago. And my grandmama and granddaddy, I call mama and daddy. We cleared this land mostly by hand. We thought we was poor, but little did we know we were doing quite well. There was other blacks in the area except for the Miles and Maxwell and some others. Many blacks lived on the white man's plantation. We didn't live on nobody's plantation. My granddaddy bought this land in hard times for a black man. And we worked the fields. On Saturdays when other children would go into town, and I remember other children riding on the back of their trucks, waving at us. We would be picking up roots and clearing the land, digging up stumps, trying to make a living, trying to pay for these 48 acres of land. I had an aunt and uncle a few miles over. They had 38 acres, I think it was, and they were paying for that land. My first cousin was over there working, and we was working over here, trying to pay for this land. And I remember the land was financed with Giant Bank, if I'm not mistaken, up in Boston, Georgia. Several times, in my most humble opinion, they tried to say that we did not pay what we was required, and they tried to take it a couple of times, but my grandmother believed in keeping receipts. And she always taught us, when you buy from a store, always get a receipt. She learned from what she went through that back in those days a white person could accuse you of anything, and it was hard for you to get away from it. Many people have gone to jail, their lives destroyed. But she was able to produce receipts. And we held on to this land. Many whites wanted to buy this land out from under us, especially when the Livingston plantation moved the blacks off their land. They didn't need them anymore to load the watermelons and pick the peas or whatever it was. This is when I began to feel good about what my grandparents had done, because they forced those people to leave, and when they left with nothing. I was a little child, I thought that they owned the houses they was living in. They was only living temporarily. They didn't have to pay rent. And some of them couldn't go to school because they had to do what the plantation owner told them to do. So sometimes those children who lived on the plantation and other farm land belonged to whites couldn't go to school. And when they went to school, we would forget they even in our class because they had to do what they had to do. That's the way it was. But we enjoy out here. When I look back on it, it really was a good life. We had plum trees, peach trees, 3 or 4 pear trees, pecan trees, grapes. We had peanuts. It really was a good life. There was a lot of love, a lot of unity among us, but above all, there was a lot of love. We didn't have everything, but we had a place to live. And we had some place we could call our own. And that's what I believe has happened in the world with our young people. They don't see their mother and father having anything. Some of them can't dream beyond today or tomorrow or this week. Yeah, we didn't have a tractor. We had to plow a mule. We had one mule called Omandy, one named Pet. And those was the key ingredients into maintaining your livelihood back in those days. We had terraces on that first level right across there to keep back the water. Those houses over there was not there, those was thick woods. One thing I made a mistake on when I first went into the Air Force, my granddaddy tried to get me to buy them 7 acres of land up there. But because my vision was dimmed, and I could have purchased them real easy, but I'd caught so much hell out here on this farm until I couldn't wait to leave. Little did I know that the things that my grandfather told me would become one of the things that I regret the most in my life. And that is not buying those 7 acres of land. And to tell you the truth, not even for not farming this land or getting somebody else to farm it or rent it out to keep control over it. There was a house in there that's fallen down now. But this was where we was brought up. And back in that day, this was just as clean as that field over there. You can see some of the house over in there. Still standing. But this is the way it was. And it was a good life. That old house raised all of us. It wasn't the best house, but we owned it. Never had a fire in the house. My grandmother was very, very careful in rearing us not to play with matches and how to close the oven, the stove. That house that I just showed you back in here, when I left that house, we never had running water. We never had a bathroom in it. But that was home. And the old saying is, there is no place like home. And I assure you today, there is no place like home. And when I come back out here to visit, I think about the whippings I used to get. I think about where we saw rattlesnakes. I think about the plum trees that used to have the best plums. And that tree right up there, right in that area there where I got the camera, used to have the best fox grapes. I remember Gussie, my sister above me, she couldn't climb, so we had to throw grapes down to her. You know, life is not worth living if you don't have memories. And this is why I fear for a lot of our young people. All they have to remember is coming up from a broken home, a brother in jail, a father in prison, a mother broken-hearted because the man she let come into her bedroom didn't stay long enough. Sisters and brothers, all by different men. And there's a great disconnect when you bust up the bonds of the bloodline. Well, I guess I'll close this tape out now. You know, stories like this, and if each one of my other 5 siblings would come up here, I'm sure they would have a different story to tell. But they all would be similar, because this was home. We had butter beans, peas, hogs. We raised hogs, few cows, goats. We did practically everything just to make a living, not to get rich, but we were happy. We would be glad to see our relatives come down from New York and different places. But then again, that's almost a thing of the past now. Today you can have your own children and they won't even come to see you now. It's a great love that we had back then that seems to have evaded us today. So as I close this out, I just want to say that this was my home. And this what gave me the love that I have today for my fellow man. I look at the world. I don't have to go to church to do good. I don't have to say I'm a servant of Jesus Christ to try to live right. Even if there is no heaven, I'm still going to do right because it's just right to do right. My Christianity or my belief in Jesus does not make me do what I do. I do it because it's the right thing to do. I'm not concerned about going to heaven. I don't do good deeds to people to try to get me a ticket into heaven. I do it because I want to do right. And so as the story goes, time waits for no man. kvci.blogspot.com, George, Boston, RHYNES. Just a servant of the people. Not so much of God, but just of the people, like Jesus was. Peace.